one of my mentors, Steve Jobs, and he told me I should visit this temple.
In this episode of my Himalayan journey, I am in Kanchidam. Why did NEEM KAROLI Baba choose Kanchidam, this particular spot?
It came from seeing a picture of a guru called NEEM KAROLI Baba. And I was so drawn to this picture of this person.
How come this place is very energetic and people claim lots of miracles happening out of this place? We'll look at it in this video. Namaskar. In the previous episode, we were talking about how I came in touch with NEEM KAROLI Baba. So I started this journey towards Kanchidam almost after 2 years since I worked on this documentary with Japna ji. Kanchidam is located 17 kilometers from Nainital towards Almora. Nainital is a well-known hill station. The nearest railway station is at Kathgodam, which is 38 kilometers. I met Tiwari ji, at whose place NEEM KAROLI Baba had stayed.
ये जगह असल में पुरानी तपस्वी जो साधु होते थे यहाँ पहाड़ में, वो लोग आते जाते थे। ये मंदिर के ही साइड में एक पुराना रास्ता था। पहले सड़कें नहीं थी, तो साधु या जितने भी लोग आते जाते होंगे तो वो यहाँ स्टे करते थे। साधु स्टे करते थे क्योंकि बाकी लोग का रहने का नहीं था। को नदी का भी सहारा था, लकड़ी वगैरह सब मिल जाती थी, गुफा थी, उसमें रह जाते थे और वहीं एक धुनी हुआ करती थी। तो उन्होंने अपना नित्य क्रम करके पूजा पाठ या हवन जो भी उन्होंने करना हुआ वहाँ किया और दूसरे या तीसरे दिन अपना आगे के लिए चले गए।
In those days, this used to be the only route in the Kumaon region to go from the plains up to Nanda Devi peak. And on the way, there are many energy spots or pilgrim spots like Almora, Kasar Devi, Kausani, and all those, and ultimately ending at the Nanda Devi peak. Nanda Devi is like almost the Kul Devi of almost every household in the Kumaon and certain parts of Garhwal region. NEEM KAROLI Baba is said to have arrived here in 1962, and when he reached here, it seems he had come in search of a certain spot where Sadhu Premi Baba and Sombari Maharaj had done their tapas.
1962 में पहली बार बाबा जी कैंची धाम में आए और आकर के जो है हमारे ही घर पे रहते थे। एक पुराना घर था पहाड़ का, उस पर रहा करते थे।
Sombari Maharaj lived from 1824 till 1920. So almost after 42 years, NEEM KAROLI Baba comes in search of this spot where Sombari Maharaj had done his tapas. So he identifies the spot, which is across the river from this village, and he requests the Tiwari family.
दादाजी से उन्होंने कहा कि मुझे मंदिर बनाना है यहाँ पे नदी के उस पार। तो नदी से इस पार की ज़मीन जो थी हमारी थी, तो उन्होंने कहा उसमें कि भैया मुझे रास्ता दे दो तो मैं यहाँ मंदिर बनाऊँ। तो दादाजी ने कहा बिल्कुल मैं रास्ता मैं देता हूँ, आप मंदिर बनवाइए।
Within that same year, he consecrates. He builds a platform around that Yagnashala or the Havan Kund, where they had done their tapas, and he does the first pratishtha on June 15th. And since then, every consecration, every pratishtha that he did there happened on June 15th, which is now celebrated as the Bandara Day.
सबसे बड़ा फेस्टिवल होता है 15 जून 1962 को महाराज जी ने इसकी स्थापना करी। उस दिन से 15 जून का जो भंडारा होता है वो मालपुआ के नाम से प्रसिद्ध है.
And of course, I asked him the very obvious question that everybody wanted to know answer to. Did Steve Jobs really come here?
हाँ, वो सही बात है. स्टीव जॉब्स महाराज जी के शरीर छोड़ने के उपरांत आए, पहले नहीं आए, बाद में आए.
Early on in our history, before things were really going well and we had hit a tough patch and a lot of people wanted to buy Facebook and thought we should sell the company, I went and I saw one of my mentors, Steve Jobs, and he told me that in order to reconnect with what I believed as the mission of the company, I should visit this temple that he had gone to in India early on in his evolution of thinking about what he wanted Apple and his vision of the future to be. And so I went and I traveled for almost a month.
So such spaces, even if historically not documented, people realized beings, great beings like Maharaj Ji, they could identify such spots, and they created cocoons around, energy cocoons around there where people could come and benefit.
फिर कई पहाड़ों में काफ़ी मंदिर बनाए. 1962 से लेके 72 तक काफ़ी मंदिर बनाए. पहला मंदिर बनाया हनुमानगढ़ नैनीताल में, दूसरा बनाया कैंची में, तीसरा बना भूमियाधार एक जगह है वहाँ पे, और उसके बाद काकड़ी घाट में बनाया, और पिथौरागढ़ में है, बद्रीनारायण में है, और यहाँ नज़दीक में इतने सारे मंदिर बनाए जो हमारे कुमाऊँ में हैं. बाकी फिर ऋषिकेश में हो गया, हरिद्वार में.
It is not just Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg who benefited from this place. Many people had asked me, how come only those two people got such benefit from that place? The thing is, there could be so many factors which influences a person's receptivity and progress. It's not just that somebody goes and stays there and then things happen to them. We need to work towards what we need to achieve.
Well, I practice. I practice at a lot of things. Hinduism is something that I'm very intrigued by and very interested in.
Where did it come from? Where did the interest come from?
It came from seeing a picture of a guru called NEEM KAROLI Baba. And I was so drawn to the picture of this person, and I didn't know who he was or what he was about, but felt a very strong interest.
Did you ever meet the man?
No, he passed long before I saw his picture, but just very intriguing. And that's the way things come into our lives. They're not these big, great crashing moments. It's just the little what is this about?
Sadhguru says that grace is something like a lubrication. When you live a life, you're putting in so much effort, you are interacting with so many people, and grace comes as a lubrication that takes you smoothly through life without taking the necessary effort, without putting in the needed work. Things are not going to happen. I met one more person, very interesting person, Ramrani ji, again introduced by Japna ji to me. She's from the US, she's from Texas.
When I was about 12 years old, I had a very split with Christianity. My mother was a Roman Catholic, and my father was a Southern Baptist, and that's like Shia and Sunni, It's very different. The Catholics think the Baptists are going to hell, and the Baptists think the Catholics are going to hell. My mother sat us down and she said, for many years I've considered myself to be an agnostic, but I just took you to church because I felt it was my duty. So we said, what's an agnostic? And she explained, as a human being, we can't know if there's a God, if there's not a God. So we all said, we don't want to go to church anymore. So that was kind of the beginning of my questioning. And I had so many questions about Christianity and about God that were not answered by the information that I had. And then when I got to India and I began to learn about Hinduism, and that the paradox doesn't exist. Nothing is mutually exclusive. Both stories can exist simultaneously, So relief from my questions because I hit the Dharma answered my questions. So that's how I discovered the Dharma in India.
She had met NEEM KAROLI Baba in 1973 when she was 21 years old.
I spent about 6 or 7 months here in Kanchidam when he was here in 1973 May. I came in March and then he left his body September 11th, 1973. And I had left Kainchi just before I left his body, so I wasn't here for that drama, but I got the message and I was able to go to his Masamadhi in Vrindavan shortly after his passing.
Since then, it's almost 50 years now, she has dedicated her life towards a single command or a single instruction that Maharajji had given her.
Really important thing that made a trajectory for my life is before he left his body, he called me to him and he said, Ramrani, when you go back to America, go to the university and study about India and help to make Hinduism better understood and respected, both here and in the West. I went back to America and I got an undergraduate degree in Hindi, in Indian studies. And then I got pregnant and married and I had babies and everything. And I knew that I needed to go to graduate school to fulfill Maharajji's command, because you have to have a master's degree or a PhD to make a difference.
So for a person who was brought up in a very orthodox Christian Texas family, what as a single line instruction that NEEM KAROLI Baba Maharajji had told Ramrani in 1973, she took it to her heart and had directed the whole course of her life in that, towards that direction.
When my children were a little bit older, in school age, I decided to go back to graduate school. So I went back to India first of all to kind of get a refresher. December 1992 is when the Babri Masjid was destroyed. So I started graduate school in December 1993. And all the people in the graduate school, all the professors were like gunning for fascist Hindus. It was just like, they didn't want to teach about Hinduism, they just wanted to teach about sati and about infanticide and all everything bad about India. That's what they taught. And they didn't teach anything good, nothing about the Dharma or the Upanishads, you know. They just taught, they picked and choose the bad things. And so I thought, this is not what I'm supposed to be learning. I'm supposed to be learning about respecting and honoring Hinduism.
The kind of work she has done into the history books of what is existing today in our school syllabus and what needs to go. She has prepared a huge report on what changes need to be brought into the history books to reflect the true history of this nation. Is exemplary. She is working closely with the government of India, along with one more person whom I will be introducing much later in this series. And this whole conversation went on for more than a couple of hours. I recorded the whole thing. Maybe I will publish it as a separate interview that I had with her. Her insight into the history of our nation and how it needs to be presented to the present generation was amazing.
From morning to afternoon, you may have a different experience in one day with Baba. Some people said that he was an incarnation of Hanuman, and he had many characteristics like Hanuman. They used to call him Chamatkar Baba, Miracle Baba, because he could do miracles. Like besides reading your mind and knowing what you're thinking, he could do things like being in two places at once. Everybody who met him had a different experience. With some people, he was very kind and affectionate and attentive. And other people, he was sharp and bossy.
So being around consecrated spaces and places of such energies where great beings have done tapas and sadhana can open up dimensions within a human being where supposedly geniuses come out of it. If not geniuses, at least a full-fledged flowering of our intelligence could happen. Wherever you are, I'm sure there could be places where such yogis and sadhus had meditated. It could be a Jiva Samadhi or a Mahasamadhi or temple which has been consecrated in a certain way. Spending time in these places, at least weekly once, couple of hours. And in addition to that, if we can maintain a small corner in our room which can act not as a consecrated space but a space where you could be open and be more receptive, just by lighting a lamp in a corner of the house, in the room that you spend most of your time in, could change the very way that room feels, and how you work could also transform. I'd already spoken a lot about why we light a lamp and the benefits of lighting a lamp. You can watch this video. I went there only to stay for a night, but meeting such people, spending time with them, and having to sit in the consecrated spaces that NEEM KAROLI Baba had created was a very wonderful experience. So from here, I moved on to Kakri Ghat. Kakri Ghat is the place where Sombari Maharaj had lived. He took Samadhi in 1920. So I moved on towards Kakri Ghat. So let's meet at Kakri Ghat next. Namaskar.